Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Green. You're tuning into AMTV, Alternative Media Television. It is, of course, April 15th, 2014, and there was a really interesting article in the week that came out last night that said if a nuclear bomb exploded in downtown Washington, what should you do? And, again, this kind of reinvigorates the Cold War fear. Many of you probably remember as a child where they told you to get underneath your desk, little Billy, if a nuclear bomb went off. Like somehow your little desk here that, used to fold up and you used to, keep your notes that you were going to give to Lucy across from you if you had a crush on her, is going to save you from a nuclear fallout. It begs a question because the President of the United States actually worries more about the threat of a terrorist improvised nuclear device going off in a major American city than anything that's currently happening in Ukraine. In fact, this was his comment that he made, according to several mainstream sources and quoted in the media. There's video footage to prove it, where he said we should all fear these type of security lapses and a potential nuke or a nuclear bomb going off in an American city, whether or not this is Washington, D.C., or New York, or San Francisco. Brushing off all concerns about what's happening in Ukraine. Again, when something's happening over here with the right hand or the left hand, depending on how you're positioned, make sure you know what's going on with the other hand. Again, the fact that the president would divert Ukraine and make comments like this to raise and to create fears among the American populace, the American people, only proves how serious of a threat that Ukraine actually is to United States Western-backed interests. The article goes on to say that, in the event of a nuke or a nuclear crisis, really the best thing for you to do is to stay put. And hopefully you're in a building with thick walls. That's really the only advice it gave. It said that the worst place to be is actually in your car, where you're a lot more likely to suffer the radiation fallout, which will then lead to a gruesome, cancerous death. If Americans aren't getting, cancer enough already through the food that they're eating, the water that they're drinking, and the air that they're breathing that is being contaminated on a regular, ongoing basis by Fortune 100 companies like GE and others that, by the way, in 2010 paid no federal income tax whatsoever. But you and your family and your children continue to pay the price of increased cancer risk, and the increased chances of pain and suffering as a result of what the president has just warned about a few months ago, saying that he fears that New York could be the target for a nuclear bomb. Stating that that is the worst thing that he fears, not Ukraine. Now, in the meantime, Ukraine leader, and look at how this is positioned and how this narrative is crafted by CNN. They say that Ukraine leader says anti-terror operation underway in a region of Ukraine, in the eastern region of Ukraine. Again, this isn't an anti-terror operation. This is an invasion. Of course, the new Ukrainian government is not the rightful legal government. The government of Viktor Yanukovych is, and he's been ousted by Molotov cocktail neo-Nazi terrorists. That's not an opinion. Those are the cold, hard facts. But notice how they phrase their titling and how the narrative is crafted that it's an anti-terror operation when it's really an invasion by terrorists. And the Ukraine leader is part of a terrorist government that, again, assumed power through violence, Molotov cocktail throwing terrorists, and neo-Nazi thugs. That's just reality. That's, again, not an opinion. That's been well documented from those people on the ground, as well as really corroborated quite loosely among even the mainstream media, not just the alternative media. In addition to that, we had a Russian fighter jet that buzzed a U.S. Navy destroyer in the Black Sea yesterday, which I doubt if it even happened. You see, the United States is aching for a reason, and they're always trying their best, making a desperate attempt to position Russia and Vladimir Putin, who really is the victim in this Ukrainian crisis, the United States, the aggressor, again, the United States and Western interests funding the terrorists, helping to instigate the neo-Nazis that just overthrew the rightful Yanukovych government in Ukraine and continue to create great instability and to encourage more bloodshed, are aching and looking for any reason or excuse to show why the United States intervention is justified. Saying and reporting yesterday that a Russian fighter jet buzzed a U.S. Navy destroyer in the Black Sea amid Ukraine crisis. Again, all this crafted by CNN and the mainstream media to build a narrative around the U.S. intervention, to try to provide support for it when it's really almost comedic in nature because it's the exact opposite of what the mainstream media is crafting. Again, I honestly, seriously doubt that this even happened at all. Here we have Obama's Manhattan Nuke comment, no indication of threat. You see how he tells Americans to worry here? You know, he says his worst fear is a nuke going off in Manhattan, and then his next statement he says, oh, but there's no indication of threat. This actually reminds me of what Warren Buffett said just a couple of weeks ago, saying that he said that it wasn't likely that the market and that the stock indexes would collapse more than 50%. He said something like that. It's like, well, if you don't think that's going to happen, well, why would you make it a public comment? Why would you say your worst fear is a nuke if you weren't trying to divert the mainstream media and the American people their eye off the ball of Ukraine, or if you didn't think that it was a legitimate threat? Again, you have to look into the semantics here and the psychology of this agenda, this Western mainstream media, statist run and owned political agenda. Again, Obama owned just another puppet of the oligarchy that is the New World Order. Also, in recent months and last year in 2013, Lindsey Graham, everybody's favorite terrorist of Washington and against the American people, said that nukes in the hands of terrorists could result in a bomb coming to Charleston Harbor. Remember when he said that? More nuke fears of a suitcase bomb or a nuke attack in an American city. Again, they all use these fear tactics on the American sheeple, on the American people, to build towards their individual narrative, which again is built on a foundation of sand because it's simply not the truth. Lindsey Graham also warned again with another nuke warning, saying that if Crimea, which has already been voted with a 90% popular vote, that's democracy, folks, to join the Russian Federation, said if Crimea became Russia, Iran would get nukes. Again, trying to coax fears among the American people and the mainstream sheeple that if they don't build support for this feigned attempt at intervention by the United States, then you'll be nuked, like Hiroshima or Nagasaki, and all of your family grossly murdered by Durka Iranian terrorists, much that many of you laughed at, as did I, in the movie and film comedy short Team America, F Yeah. Again, this raises all kinds of, I think, important questions for us to ask. You know, what would you do and where would you likely be in the event of a nuclear bomb going off? What would you do? How would you react? And what's the game plan? I mean, has Washington even given the American people a game plan? I mean, what if, God forbid, this did happen? What is the game plan? Is the reality that just hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people would just die a gruesome, brutal death? Is that the reality? Is that the reason that Obama hasn't put out a response plan, an insurance policy, an action plan against what he even says himself is his worst fear? I mean, ask yourself that question. And I think this all goes back into and puts us into the minds of our thinking caps of, are we prepared for an event like this? And could you ever really be prepared for an event like this? What would you do? What's your family's action plan? And what's the actual likelihood of an event like this happening? You know, another Nagasaki, Hiroshima type event. Again, it's no secret that many nations around the world and many groups, many legitimate terrorist threats to the United States hate the USA. What if they did get their hands on a suitcase bomb? What if the United States federal government detonated it on itself, which we've seen happen time and time again? Whether or not this is in line with September 11th conspiracy theories here in the States in 2001, or this is the Gulf of Tonkin, or this is any other large cover-up which has now been well documented and proven, is part of a masterminded plan by the New World Order and the U.S. government and the New World oligarchy that rules over all of us. Again, these are the worst fears of your politicians. You know, this is bigger than left and right. Obama's worried that a nuke is about to go off in New York City. And Lindsey Graham is worried a nuke is about to go off in Charleston Harbor. And all of this is building towards Ukraine in America's and Western-backed interests' feigned and weak attempt to garner and coax American and Western public support for a war in which they are the aggressor. Clearly, the United Nations, the IMF, the EU, member states are pushing for the destabilization effort in Ukraine in order to control natural resources, to decrease their dependency on natural gas from Mother Russia, and really to attempt, although I think a failed attempt, to hamper the aspirations of the Russian Empire, which has been rebuilding itself and has been the dream and vision of Vladimir Putin for much of his political office. I'm Christopher Green. Get this out everywhere. Make it viral. Click the link below. And I want to hear from you right now. Put your comment, question in the discussion box below. Are you prepared for this? Can we ever be prepared for this? And is America and Western leadership, are they telling us something? Are they preparing us something? Is there a reason that they're raising and sparking these nuke fears among the masses? Are we prepared for a Hiroshima or Nagasaki in the United States? Again, it's Obama's worst fear. My question is it a valid one? Get it out everywhere, make it viral, hard-hitting it in your face. Click the link below to support our sponsor.